Good evening, everyone. Welcome back, future lawyers, to day 25 of our bar review. We are now exactly 164 days away from the bar examinations. Today, we dive into the final and most heavily tested subtopic under the general principles of subject matter jurisdiction, the effect of estoppel. Our guiding verse is Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. As we will learn today, the Supreme Court does not tolerate duplicity. You cannot gamble with the courts by pretending a judge has power when you are winning, only to suddenly claim he has no power when you lose. But before we tackle estoppel, it has been exactly 3 days since day 22. It is time to resolve the bar question I left you regarding special commercial courts. Here is the question from day 22. An ordinary collection suit was mistakenly raffled to an RTC designated as a special commercial court. The defendant immediately filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that a special commercial court only exercises limited jurisdiction and cannot hear an ordinary civil case. Should the motion be granted? Let us reveal the suggested answer using our beer method. If your draft looks like this, give yourself 4 points. First, the binary. No, the motion to dismiss should not be granted. Second, the enabling law. Jurisprudence provides that despite its special designation, a regional trial court remains a court of general jurisdiction and can validly hear and try a non-commercial case. Third, the evaluation. Here, despite the special designation of Branch 42 of the Regional Trial Court of Makati City by the Supreme Court as a special commercial court, it remains a court of general jurisdiction and can validly hear and try the collection case filed by X Corporation which was mistakenly raffled to such branch. And finally, the resolution. Thus, the motion to dismiss should not be granted. This is a brilliantly crafted answer. Notice how perfectly you wove the specific facts into your evaluation to hit all the right triggers. Now, let us proceed to today's main topic. To properly digest the effect of estoppel on jurisdiction, we will use our four-level analytical framework, the Beer syllabus. First, the big picture, recognizing the clash between strict law and equity. Second, the essential pillar, visually contrasting the general rule of non-waiver against the exception of laches. Third, the elemental principle, outlining the strict requisites for estoppel to apply. And fourth, the root level, applying a recent Supreme Court ruling in this matter. For our big picture, we revisit the absolute rule we learned in day 24, subject matter jurisdiction. It is conferred exclusively by law and cannot be waived. If a court lacks jurisdiction, its judgment is completely void. However, what happens when applying this strict law results in a gross injustice? What happens when a party abuses this rule? This is where the equitable doctrine of estoppel steps in to prevent litigants from making a mockery of the judicial system. Moving down to our essential pillar, look at the perfectly balanced scales on your screen. On one side is the rigid stone tablet of the general rule: lack of subject matter jurisdiction can be raised at any time or at any stage of the proceedings, and failure to raise affirmative defenses early does not necessarily constitute a waiver for subject matter jurisdiction. On the other side is the glowing heart of equity, the exception of estoppel by laches. While the law dictates that a void judgment can be attacked any time, equity dictates that you cannot invoke this rule if you have slept on your rights for an unreasonable length of time. To truly understand estoppel by laches, Look at the desperate gambler on your screen. This gambler placed his chips on the table, actively played the game, and waited for the wheel to stop. But the moment he realized he lost, he tried to snatch his chips back, claiming the casino never had the right to take his money. This is exactly what estoppel prevents in litigation. You cannot actively gamble in a trial court, ask the judge for affirmative reliefs, and then only upon receiving an adverse or losing judgment suddenly claim that the court never had jurisdiction in the first place. Now we reach the elemental principle. When does this exception apply? Look at the rusted ivy-covered clock stuck in time. For estoppel by latches to permanently freeze a party's right to object, four strong equitable elements must exist. Just remember the mnemonic PARU. First, the party participated actively in the trial. Second, they sought affirmative relief like filing counterclaims. Third, they raised the jurisdictional defect only after they received an adverse judgment. And fourth, an unreasonable length of time passed of 10 years before the issue was raised. If you wait too long, the clock rusts over and you can no longer turn back time. However, look at the impenetrable fortress gate on your screen. Estoppel is not a magic wand that cures all jurisdictional mistakes. It is a very narrow and restricted exception. As a rule, estoppel must be applied with great care. If a defendant raises the lack of subject matter jurisdiction early in the proceedings, such as in his answer or during the early stages of trial, estoppel does not apply. The court is strictly bound to dismiss the case. Before we look at our root level case, let us hit the pause button. Close your eyes, actively recall our visual anchors. What do the balance scales represent? The balance between strict law and equity. What does the desperate gambler snatching his chips represent? A party who only questioned jurisdiction after losing the case. What does the rusted stock clock tower represent? Latches or an unreasonable delay in time. Open your eyes. Perfect. Let us bring this down to the root level with a 2020 Supreme Court ruling in Velasquez Jr. versus Lesondra Land Incorporated. In this case, the Supreme Court issued a stem reminder to the bench and bar. The law apportioned the jurisdiction of courts for the orderly administration of justice. You cannot carelessly use the doctrine of estoppel to excuse every mistake in filing. Estoppel must be applied with great care and only when strong equitable considerations are present. If a party did not sleep on their rights for an unreasonable period, the court has no choice but to strictly apply the law and dismiss the case. To wrap up our discussion today, here is a highly possible bar question testing the strict application of estoppel by latches. Let us read it. ABC Corporation mistakenly filed a land recovery case in the RTC instead of the MTC. XYZ Incorporated actively participated, filed a counterclaim, and attended hearings. 5 years later, XYZ Incorporated lost the case. Only upon receiving the adverse decision did XYZ Incorporated appeal, arguing for the first time that the RTC lacked subject matter jurisdiction. Will the argument of XYZ Incorporated prosper? I will leave this question with you as your assignment. Remember the desperate gambler and the rusted clock tower. Draft your best beer-style answer, and following our 3-day rule, we will reveal the suggested answer on day 20. Before we officially end today's session, remember Proverbs chapter 10 verse 9. The integrity of the upright guides them. Play the game of litigation with integrity and never abuse the rules just because you are losing. Thank you for joining me on day 25. Keep up the momentum, and I will see you in our next session.